That's right, Darwin Awards is back again, baby. From a case of explosive chewing gum to a shocking virtual reality mishap, alongside a fellow who got wiped out by a random flying cow, all this and so much more as we take a look at even more Darwin Award winners. Chew chew boom. If I told you someone died from chewing gum, you'd probably assume some sort of choking incident, right? Well, wrong. As we'll soon see, one chronically airheaded Ukraine man suffered a death by gum in perhaps the most unimaginable and, dare I say, mind-blowing way. This 25-year-old chemistry student at the Kyiv Polytechnic Institute had a bit of a strange habit. He liked to dip his gum in citric acid powder, which reports suggest he did as a way of prolonging the gum's flavor. Interestingly, while it's naturally found in citrus fruits, citric acid in its concentrated form isn't exactly a great contributor to oral health, what with it causing tooth enamel erosion. Though I guess a cavity was the least of the guy's worries when the gum quite literally exploded in his mouth and blew his jaw off. But here's the strangest part. While this wouldn't have happened if he didn't have a taste for citric acid-laden gum, it wasn't actually the acid that caused this. Let me explain. One evening, this rookie chemist was hard at work in his room experimenting with, quote, various chemicals. Only later forensic inspection would find that one of the chemicals was around 4 times more explosive than TNT. And with explosives like this, sometimes all it takes to set them off is a little pressure. With this, authorities concluded that the poor guy must have confused the powdered citric acid with the bang bang boom boom powder and mistakenly dipped his gum in the explosive. If extra flavor was what he craved, he got a whole explosion when he bit down on it, resulting in him exiting the human gene pool with quite the bang. We'll send your Darwin Award in the mail. Holy cow. Coming in from one of our viewers, Mojesh Shah, and verified by Indian news sources, this next story is so crazy and unbelievable that I'm still trying to process what I read. According to an Indian news outlet, Times Now, in 2023, a retired railway employee in Alwar, Rajasthan, was for some reason taking a tinkle on the railway track, which, while certainly a strange choice, would also later prove deadly, considering that this was the exact spot that he would be hit, not by a train, but, am I reading this right? The exact spot that he would be hit by a flying cow. Okay, allow me to explain. I can assure you that as miraculous as it would be, a cow didn't fall from the heavens, but instead had gotten onto the train track further up the line and was yeeted at full speed into the air, making its incredibly unlucky crash landing on the poor old urinator. I mean, it's like my late grandmother always used to say to me, "Watch out for those flying cows while taking a pee on train tracks." She was always full of so much wisdom, and here I was thinking it was just her medication talking. Beauty and the Boat. In the age of social media and internet, it seems that the growing extremities of vanity have reached a new peak. So much so, vanity is now even proven deadly, as it cost 2 influencers their lives. In 2024, off the coast of Brazil, in a stretch of water known quite ominously as the Devil's Throat, a group of 6 influencers were boozing and cruising on a party boat. As the 6 of them loaded onto the boat with a maximum capacity of 5, they thought, 5 schmive, what could possibly go wrong? Well, spoiler alert, a lot. But let's rewind a little bit, why don't we? Turns out overloading the boat was only part of their moronic demise, what with 2 of the women refusing to wear life jackets. Why, you might ask? Well, because according to police, the influencers said the life jackets would totes like ruin their tans and selfies, duh. Yep, the women literally disregarded potentially life-saving precautions for the sake of their tans and selfies. I can only assume they were huge fans of the Darwin Awards and wanted one for themselves. Challenging the girls' foolish hubris, Miss Mother Nature soon struck their boat with a huge wave, quickly sinking the vessel due to its exceeded weight capacity. Without life jackets nor, here's the punchline, the ability to swim, the jacketless jugheads met their immortal reality. Just to recap, two women who couldn't swim got on an overcapacitated boat and refused to wear life jackets, all because they wanted good tans and selfies. In the world of influencers, I'm sure this is all just an occupational hazard, but please, let this be a cautionary tale about the deathly dangers of vanity. Virtual reality versus mortal reality. Alright, so this next story is another gem sent in to us from a viewer, going by the name Wild Jr. And well, all I'm gonna say is that it's a real 21st century shocker. In New South Wales, Australia, a woman was at home enjoying her brand new virtual reality set. You know, the kind where you wear a blinding headset and wave your arms around like a crazy person? Well, while she may have escaped to the virtual world, her mortal reality loomed just around the corner. As she was about to find out why, it's probably a good idea to clear your surroundings before jerking your body around blindfolded. As the woman jolted back, she tripped on some clutter, falling onto an old beat-up electric heater. This in turn electrocuted her to a crisp while simultaneously causing a house fire. Yikes. Hope she was enjoying the game at least. Tractor tragedy. There are many things in life that might seem like a fun idea, but in reality are extremely stupid and dangerous. One such instance might be rolling down a mountain on the inside of a tractor's tire. See what I mean? Tell me that doesn't sound fun as hell, but you wouldn't actually do it, would you? Well, our next Darwin Award recipient was so deficient in common sense that he willingly tire tumbled down a mountain with a 70-degree decline, which bottomed out along a river. Plummeting down at an uncontrollably high speed and into said river, the guy couldn't free himself from the wheel and drowned, earning his place as one of humanity's biggest dum-dums to ever live. Thank you to our viewer Ilya Popov for gracing us with this marvelously idiotic tale. Catch of the day. While there are so many sports that can be considered dangerous, like boxing or dirt biking, you'd assume that fishing from the safety of the waterside is relatively tame. And well, for the most part it is, unless you're fatally lacking in spatial awareness like this next guy. Whilst out fishing along the shore of a local dam, the 46-year-old from the city of Rus in Bulgaria cast out his huge 20-foot-long carbon fishing rod. Evidently, however, observing his immediate surroundings wasn't his forte, what with him failing to realize there was a high-voltage power line directly above him. Yep, as he hurled out his line and it met the wire, the powerful current zapped down his rod and electrocuted the man to a crisp. Needless to say, I don't think this was quite the buzz he was hoping to get from his fishing trip. Shout out to our viewer Viara, all the way from Bulgaria, for sending in this prize catch of a story. Surrender to the seatbelt. It may be a novel idea, but hear me out. Seatbelts can actually save lives. Insane, I know. Though in all seriousness, did you know that they've been proven to reduce the risk of death for drivers involved in serious crashes by a massive 50%, meaning their importance cannot be overstated. And with that in mind, allow me to introduce you to our next Darwin Award winner whose bizarre hatred towards seatbelts came around to bite him on the behind. The year was 2008, and a New Zealand man had accumulated some 32 fines on account of seatbelt violations. Seemingly no amount of fines or reprimanding would convince this lawbreaker to wear a seatbelt. As a matter of fact, his bizarre aversion to seatbelts was so severe that he even fashioned a fake seatbelt of sorts that would lay across his chest to give the impression of a seatbelt to any pesky cops. Seriously, at that effort level, why not just wear an actual seatbelt? And while this might have successfully averted a few more fines, it didn't avert his death. It seems fate certainly isn't without a sense of irony, because the man met his end in a car accident that otherwise wouldn't have killed him had he been wearing a seatbelt. According to the coroner's report, the fatality occurred due to his body converging with the steering wheel when his car hit the oncoming vehicle. which the coroner confirmed would have had a very high probability of survivability if the driver had, you guessed it, been restrained by a seatbelt. So while a fake seatbelt might fool a cop or two, unfortunately you can't fool the laws of physics. Hairy situation. At some point or another, we've all experienced the unpleasantness of getting a hair in our mouth. For most, it's uncomfortable, but for our next Darwin Award winner, it was clearly irresistible, as she regularly loved munching on her own locks. Now, this winner's hairy appetite was a somewhat lifelong issue, so much so her parents had to cut her hair short when she was around 10 years old. However, by 1999, the young woman, who was ironically studying hairdressing, had grown her locks back out. And well, it's true that old habits die hard, given that she had chomped through so much of her own hair that a giant undigested hairball formed in her lower abdomen. So giant, in fact, it was said to be the size and shape of a football. As you can imagine, this caused great pain and discomfort, and eventually surgery proved necessary. And while the hairy monster was removed, unfortunately, complications in the recovery process spelled the end for our strange snacker. Her life may have been cut short, pardon the pun, but at least she'll always be remembered as the girl who ate so much hair that she died. There's gotta be a Guinness World Record in there somewhere, right? Deliciously dangerous. Oh, hi there. Today I'm going to be showing you how I cook up one of my favorite snacks, Mysore Banda, a South Asian classic. You will need flour, curd, baking soda, onions, ginger, curry leaves, cilantro, and of course, powdered pesticides to give it that extra kick. Wait, what? Okay, so back in 2020 in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu, one 22-year-old newlywed wife was preparing some delicious Mysore Banda for her husband and in-laws. To make the dish, her father-in-law brought her some Maida flour. Unfortunately, he left it on the counter right next to a bag of powdered pesticides for the family's farmland. Despite the flour and pesticides being in what we can only assume to be very different packaging, the clueless cook mistook them both for being flour and got to cooking with them. Having literally poisoned the food, it's hardly surprising that shortly after the family fell severely ill and was rushed to the hospital. Fortunately, the in-laws somehow managed to survive the lethal dose of pesticides. However, the newlywed couple weren't so lucky. Hard to believe that someone could be dumb enough to confuse pesticides with flour, but this innovative chef is living proof. Well, was. A special shout out to Gautam Ashanganadam, who suggested this brilliant story to us via email. If you know of any Darwin Award-worthy stories, email it to us at stories@beamazed.com, and we might just feature it in our next installment. Oh, and if you're really loving this series, then why not head on over to my official merch store via the link on screen and get your hands on our amazingly crafted poster we call Natural Selection in Action. Showing 75 illustrations of some of my favorite Darwin Award winners from throughout the series, you're sure to spot something new every time you look at it. The perfect gift or home decor, grab it while stocks last. Fish supper. Packed with protein, vitamins, and omega-3 fatty acids, it's no wonder that fish is such a popular choice of cuisine. I don't know how you like your fish, but I personally prefer mine to be dead before I eat it. Seems obvious, but in 1998, one 23-year-old was hanging out with his friends when he was challenged to a dare. His task was simple: swallow a live fish. And well, everyone knows that the first rule of dares is that you simply cannot turn down a dare. Besides, he had reportedly performed this party trick before anyway. With a 5-inch fish in hand, our man gulped down his live supper, but in doing so, the fish got lodged in his throat, causing him to choke his way into the great beyond. Worse yet, paramedics reported how when they arrived, the fellow was dead, but the fish was still alive and wriggling with its tail sticking out of his mouth. But hey, at least he was a good sport, right? But while we're on the topic of people dying from eating animals that probably shouldn't be eaten, our next Darwin Award winner had more of an appetite for amphibians. It was 2017 and a group of South Korean men were out at a reservoir when they decided to hunt some edible bullfrogs to eat later on. Only those were no edible bullfrogs. As the men would soon discover the hard way, what they had caught were actually toads. specifically toads of the bufo genus, which were carrying a chemical poison known as bufotoxin, which, spoiler alert, can be deadly. This poisonous substance is a natural deterrent to predators, and it's safe to say it certainly worked as the men began violently vomiting and were rushed to the hospital. Strangely, while all of the men exhibited similar symptoms, only one of them fatally succumbed to the poisoning, presumably the guy who was hungriest. R.I.P. That is, ribbit in peace to the poor toads who had to go through this. Fools versus fireworks. With fireworks quite literally being explosives, the dangers of playing with them shouldn't need to be stated. However, this is a Darwin Awards video after all, and, well, I'm sure you can imagine things don't usually pan out great when an idiot and fireworks cross paths. Case in point, one 32-year-old fellow from India who was celebrating Diwali. The popular religious holiday is often referred to as the Festival of Lights, and accordingly, many choose to celebrate with fireworks. As such, this individual, along with 6 of his pals, was enjoying the festivities and some drinks, though clearly a bit too much at the point where it started to seem like a good idea to sit on a box of lit fireworks. Yep, as part of a dare deal, our genius of the year would sit on the lit fireworks, and in return his so-called friends would buy him an auto rickshaw. I mean, it sounds like an undeniable deal, life-ending burns and injuries to your rear end from sitting on an explosive in return for a glorified bike. Who could say no? With this level of stupidity, it was only a matter of time before natural selection took its course in some way or another, and in this case it was one hell of an explosive finale. Flattened fate. Despite what we might see in the Disney movies and fairy tales, wild animals are, well, just that. Wild. And as such, their tendencies can be pretty aggressive, especially when faced with stupidity in human form like this next Darwin Award winner. In 2024, a 43-year-old Spanish man and his fiancée were part of a group touring the South African wildlife of the Pilanesberg National Park. As the car passed a group of wild elephants, the man insisted they stop so that he might get up close to the elephants and take pictures. Now, to you, me, and everyone in the car with him, this sounded like a terrible idea, so they strongly tried to advise him not to do it. What do they know, I'm sure the guy thought as he approached the giants with his camera, painfully ignorant of the stampede that was about to ensue. Well, the elephants were clearly feeling under threat by the uninvited approach because they charged towards the man, knocked him to the ground, and quite literally flattened him as they repeatedly stomped on his tenderized meat suit. Yeah, I don't remember this part of Dumbo. I can only imagine this guy's last words were, "Honey, get my pictures developed." Fatally greedy. People often ask me, "Gee, be amazed, what do you think the funniest food is?" And to that I say, while tater tots and fish sticks are close contenders, the prize has to go to hot dogs. I mean, come on, wieners? What more do I need to say? One person who didn't find hot dogs quite so funny, unfortunately, was the South Dakota man who succumbed to the wiener back in 2014 when he was participating in a hot dog eating competition. Things took a turn for the bratwurst after this dog gobbler wolfed down so many wieners that his body couldn't keep up and he soon began to choke. Despite attempts at CPR by the event's support staff, it was too late. In response to the dude's doggone demise, the contest sponsor said, quote, "We are at a loss for words." So was he. Well, he may never have won the hot dog eating competition, but do you know what he did win? That's right, a Darwin Award! Subway Surfers. We've all probably seen or even played the phone game Subway Surfers. Simple concept. Kid runs on top of moving trains, hopping from one to the next. And as thrilling as that might seem, I think we can all agree that doing it in real life probably isn't a great idea. Not least deadly. Well, proving yet again how common sense isn't actually all that common, in 2024, a group of young men in Austria decided to play some live-action Subway Surfers. Thrill-seeking, they somehow managed to get atop of a train moving at around 30 miles per hour. Not exactly extreme speed, but still fast enough to be life-threateningly dangerous nonetheless. All of this whilst filming everything for a TikTok. The youth of today, am I right? Shockingly, it wasn't long until disaster struck. As the train approached a tunnel, the guys flattened themselves to the roof, leaving mere inches to spare. But just as the tunnel was exited, two of the fellas got up and turned towards the camera, unaware of the oncoming railway bridge that was about to knock them into another dimension. One of the surfers made his final departure, if you will, while the other miraculously survived. The two who were wielding the cameras were unharmed and filmed all the details before posting it to TikTok. My faith in humanity truly is at a record low. No strings attached. For many thrill seekers, taking to the bungee rope is perhaps the ultimate adrenaline rush as they hurl themselves hundreds of feet through the air. But as we're about to find out, bungee jumping probably isn't the best idea if you are, well, an idiot. Back in 2021, a 25-year-old woman and her boyfriend were bungee jumping for the first time in Colombia. As the amateur daredevils took to the platform 150 feet in the air, they began to get harnessed up to the safety equipment. Having been fully harnessed and attached to the platform, the boyfriend was given the go-ahead by the instructor, but for some reason, Eager Beaver girlfriend, who was not yet attached to the harness equipment, presumed the signal was for her. So over she went. As expected, gravity had a few things to say about that decision. Let's just say this wasn't a tumble she could just walk off. Blowhole buffoonery. Ever heard of a blowhole? For those who don't know, these are, in simple terms, naturally occurring geological structures that form when sea caves grow inwards and under the land, causing a vertical shaft to form between sea and surface. These geological oddities can be unpredictable, not to mention deadly, as our next Darwin Award winner found out the hard way. It was 2002 and a young man was goofing around a blowhole in Hawaii, completely disregarding the warning signs which advised a safe distance. This adventurer was peering over the opening when a blast of seawater burst up right through it. It knocked him 5 feet into the area, after which the current of the returning water sucked him deep down into the blowhole where it's believed he got trapped in the uneven rocky interior and eventually ran out of air. Yikes, pretty terrifying way to go. And of course entirely avoidable, as all the best Darwin Award winner demises are. So remember, be smart, be careful, and stay alive, because I wouldn't want to have to tell your story in this series. And another Darwin Awards comes to an end. But don't worry, I have plenty more up my sleeve. Let me know down in the comments or email stories@beamazed.com if you have any Darwin Award tales to share. Catch you in the next episode.